I thought the writing was really beautiful, which I personally don't really care for, like super lyrical prose, like verse. Like I'm not really into that, but I will admit that it was pretty, like it was beautifully written. Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Today I'm finally announcing, releasing, whatever, the secret project that I've been working on probably since about July is when I started working on this. Something like that, somewhere around like the end of July, early August. And the time has finally come for me to be able to share with you guys what that project is. And as you saw by the title, this will be called the 5-Star Exchange. So for this collab, I basically gathered together 4 other booktubers and we all exchanged 5-star recommendations. Now the way that this worked was we each recommended, I forget how many, it was like 3 or 4 recommendations that we came up with based on like 5-star books that we gave 5 stars. And then we were each given a code name, and then your code name is basically dropped in a hat and everyone chooses a name, and whoever's name you choose, that's whose recommendations you're supposed to read. Now, even though we gave like 3 or 4 recommendations, you were only required to read one of them. I personally only read one. I don't know if other people potentially maybe read more than one. That's totally fine. I told them it was up to them how many they wanted to read, as long as they read at least one, obviously. And the plot twist here is that we don't know whose recommendations we read until after we finished reading it. I think like Secret Santa, except with book recommendations. I also just want to note that not only did they not know whose recommendations they were given to read, they also didn't even know who else was a part of this collab. I purposefully withheld that information because I didn't want anyone to use process of elimination to be able to go onto people's channels and try to figure out whose recommendations they might have been given, so I completely withheld that information altogether. I don't know if anybody will mention it in their videos, but one of the things that I'm surprised about is that no one called me out on the name choices, the code names that I gave everyone. In case anyone does bring this up in any of their videos, because by the way, I have not seen their videos, so I don't know. But the code names that everyone was given were code names based on song lyrics or titles of songs from The Wiggles. Don't ask, that was the first thing that came to my mind. So that is why their code names were what they were. If you know, you know. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this collab was because I thought that this would be a really good way to kind of step outside of your comfort zone, maybe read some books that you otherwise wouldn't have read, and also potentially be introduced to some booktubers that you also may not have stumbled across or had never heard of before. So hopefully both for the booktubers that are a part of this collab, as well as you, the viewer watching this right now, hopefully that is something that you were able to take away from this. It's either a new booktuber that you didn't know before or a new book recommendation that you hadn't heard of before. I tried to make this as like fair as possible. I tried to make this as anonymous as possible, even for myself. Eventually I did end up figuring out whose name I drew, but I don't know who drew my name. I don't know about y'all, but I'm very excited to watch these videos. And like I said earlier, the playlist for them will be down below in the description, so be sure to check out everybody's video. So the name that I drew was Cold Spaghetti. That was their code name. And so the books that I had to choose from were Circe, City of Brass, XPB. I'm not sure if XPB is part of the title or not, but City of Brass, and With the Fire on High. And you'll see in the next clip what I decided to read for this. Hopefully, is it behind me? Okay, good. You can't see. It's not on the shelf, so you can't see which one, because normally this shelf right here has like my current reads on it. But I took everything off so that you couldn't see it. So we're gonna jump into the vlog portion of this video, and we're gonna rewind back to when I first started the reading for the book that I chose. Hello. So I have decided on which book I'm going to read. I pretty much already knew which one I was going to read from the beginning. As soon as I saw the list, I immediately knew which one I was going to be picking, and I decided to go with Circe by Madeline Miller. This is a book that I already had on my TBR. I think I bought this book probably sometime last year because I read Song of Achilles back in July or August or something of 2022, and this is by the same author, and this is also Greek mythology. So I had originally purchased this because, first of all, also didn't know I was holding it upside down this entire time, but look at this cover. This cover is freaking gorgeous. But I like Greek mythology, I enjoyed Song of Achilles, so I figured I would like this as well, and then I just never got around to it. So now is the perfect opportunity for me to read this book and also be able to work on my physical TBR at the same time. I don't actually have any idea really what this is about. I have never heard of Circe, don't know who she is. My understanding, and I do know who the person is that recommended my books because I kind of was the mastermind behind this whole project. Originally I did not know, but because someone forgot who their person was, I had to go back and look at the list, and so obviously I figured out who my person was. But based on what I have heard this person say about this book in the past, like before I decided to set this whole thing up, I didn't know they were going to recommend this. But from what I've heard, I think this is about a witch, maybe. Like, I think Circe is a witch. I also thought that Circe was a siren, so I don't really know. Basically what I'm saying is I have no idea what this is about, besides the fact that it has to do with Greek mythology, and I'm excited to read this. I am like trying to remember how Song of Achilles was. Like, I know that it was like kind of slow in the beginning. I remember that it was like very lyrical and beautiful and stuff like that, so like I have to like get my mind ready for that, because that's not the kind of stuff that I've been reading the last couple months. So I'm trying to like get my mind prepared to go into this story so that I can appreciate it for what it is. But yeah, I don't really know anything about this. I could read the synopsis, but that's no fun, so I'm just gonna go into it blind. Oh, okay, in the back they give you a cast of characters, which is awesome, because Song of Achilles did the same thing, and that was actually very helpful. So I love that the author continues to do that. I trust this person with their recommendations because this is the same person that recommended one of my 5-star reads for this year. So I do trust this person's taste. But I also, like I said, I vaguely remember them saying something about this having to maybe do with witches. So them giving this 5 stars might be completely biased because they love witches. So they might have just given it 5 stars off the strength of that. Hopefully it goes well. I'm not going into it expecting to give this book 5 stars just because of the type of book that it is and knowing what my taste is. But I do think that this could be a good experience, just like how Song of Achilles was, where I didn't give it 5 stars, but I still enjoyed it and I still recommend it to people. So without further ado, I am going to get started on this. I am actually headed out to work, so I'm going to be listening to this on the audiobook on my way to work, and then I will catch up with you guys later on this evening. Back. It is midnight. It's literally midnight on the nose. Yeah, I just wanted to check in with you guys. Let me see, how far did I get today? Is that it? I'm only 10%. Oh no, I'm 31%. I was 10% when I was reading it the first time, and now I am up to 31. I was like, I feel like I read a lot. How to only read 10%. It's interesting because Circe is a descendant of the Titans, which I don't think I've ever read, and I don't really know too much about any of the mythology that has to do with the Titans. Most of the mythology that I am familiar with has to do with like the Olympians. So this is interesting. I'm still a little bit confused because I was almost like for sure that I remember people saying that like this book was about sirens, or that Circe was a siren, or something along those, something that had to do with sirens. Maybe I completely made that up. Maybe this is some kind of like Mandela effect moment that I'm having. I don't know, but I haven't gotten to anything about any sirens yet. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that because I was really looking forward to reading about sirens. I have a special place in my heart for sirens purely because of the Vampire Diaries. So I was very interested in reading a story about sirens. This does check out with what the person who recommended this book, what they said about Circe being a witch. She is a witch. So again, it makes sense as to why this person likes this book so much with like no context. Just knowing that the MC is a witch, like that makes so much sense. So far, I'm not loving it. I'm not disliking it, but I'm not loving it. I do really enjoy Greek mythology, so I am enjoying it because of that. I would say that if you're not into Greek mythology, you probably wouldn't like it, or at least up to where I'm at right now. Maybe the story, hopefully the story, is going to get juicier and better. At one point, they said that Circe's father breeds with the cows. That was concerning. He like shapeshifts or something like into a bull and like mates with the cows. I don't know how I feel about that. Things have happened, but it's not anything that I'm like, oh my gosh. The story itself is kind of slow. It's like characters and things happening that I don't feel invested in the story. I don't really care about Circe at all. I'm interested in like the Greek mythology aspect of it, so like all the different gods and goddesses and like what they're the god or goddess over, or what their skills and strengths are, or who's related to who, and who's baby mama, and who's sleeping with their cousin. They all have like a step grand cousin, or like a half brother uncle, or something like crazy. Like they just all just have 1,000 kids with each other, and it's really crazy and wild. Like their family trees are out of control. I think that's really all I have to say for this check-in. Like I said, I'm only 31% in, so I still have a ways to go. I'm hoping to get at least 50% of the way in tomorrow, although I do have a happy hour to go to tomorrow. It's a farewell from one of my coworkers, so I don't know how much reading I'm gonna get done tomorrow realistically, but we'll see. That is the update. It is now past midnight. I'm going to go to bed. I will check in with you when I read a little bit more of this book. I think the last time I did an update, I was around like 30% or something like that. I am now at 50% in the audiobook. I still have not changed my thoughts. I'm still like waiting for this book to get good. I know that some books like don't really like take off until like the middle or like a little bit past the middle, so still holding out hope that this book will get good. But at this point into my reading, I don't see why this person gave this book 5 stars outside of the fact that the main character is a witch. Like outside of that, I don't like. So far to me, this book is like kind of boring, kind of depressing, and like sad and slow. It's not my vibe at all. I'm hoping that maybe things will get better towards the end. I don't know. I really don't even know. Like I just finished chapter 14 and yikes, the end of chapter 14 was brutal. I didn't even know. I should have checked the trigger warnings. That's my fault. I should have checked the trigger warnings. Here's my warning to you to check the trigger warnings before you read this book if you plan on reading this book. I'm currently sprinting with Courtney, but I decided to go to Five Below during the sprint while I was listening to the audiobook in my car to go pick up some phone cases. I got the new 15 Pro, but I got these phone cases, these 3. They didn't have a lot to choose from. Obviously the phone just came out, so there's not a whole lot of phone case options out there yet, especially for like an affordable price. Like these were only like $5 or $5 and some change, because you know Five Below isn't really below 5 anymore. The phone case that I have on my old phone, this is the old one. This phone case I've had since I got this phone, and I got this from Five Below just like the rest of these, and it has lasted me between the phone case and the screen protector. I get both of them from Five Below. Every iPhone that I've had since like 2016-ish, somewhere like that. Like basically my point is that for years I have been using Five Below screen protectors and phone cases, and I've never had an issue. I drop my phone all the time, and I've never had an issue of like my phone shattering or cracking or anything like that. I'm going to continue to read a little more during this sprint. And then I need to clean up, so I'm probably going to listen to even more of it while I'm cleaning. I need to make dinner, so I'm probably going to listen to more of it while I'm cooking dinner. So I don't know, we'll see. I'll try to get to like another 10% at least tonight. That's my goal, is to get up to 60% by the end of the night. But hopefully by the time I get to like 60%, 65%, maybe this story will get a little bit better. But right now, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not feeling this story. I'm not a fan. But who knows? It'll be funny if I really like love this by the end of it. Looking back at this clip will be hilarious. But if I don't end up loving it and I still end up hating it by the time I get to it, then this will not be funny. With another update for Cersei, and I will say that this book has gotten more interesting, but I think that for me anyway, things did not get more interesting until she got pregnant. Once she got pregnant, all the stuff about her impending motherhood, and then even once she like had the baby, that whole like motherhood story, I mean it's not over yet, but that whole motherhood story was very interesting. Not really relatable for me at all, because like I don't have kids, but I feel like this is a story, or like that section of this book is something that I feel like a lot of mothers could connect with or relate to on some level, you know, to some degree. I thought initially the way that her child was being written, I was under the impression that her child was going to be on the spectrum, but now that I've gotten to a point where the child is now like 15 years old or something like that, and I don't think that that's the case. I think that maybe he was just a badass little kid and she was struggling to parent because she didn't know what she's doing. And she wasn't like disciplining him, and she didn't really know how to handle him, which again I think is probably relatable for a lot of first-time parents, especially first-time single mothers. I can only imagine. She was given a prophecy about her child, and she was doing all this stuff to try to like prevent it from happening. And I've gotten to the point where like we're up to the point where like it's time for the prophecy to like take place, and it's like, ooh, what's gonna happen? What are we gonna do? This is why I like Greek mythology. This whole story with like her child, the prophecy, the aftermath, the fallout, like this is why I like Greek mythology. Everything that came before this I literally couldn't care less about, but this is why I live for Greek mythology. This is where things in Greek mythology start getting crazy. I don't have that much left to go. I'm almost finished. This is what I have left to read, so I'm very close to being done. I definitely want to finish this today because I'm very curious to see what is gonna happen, how this is all gonna play out. I don't know the story of Circe's, but I am excited to find out, so I'm gonna try to knock this out now. So here we go. So I did finish the book, and my final thoughts, I would give this book 3.5 stars, which I don't think is a bad rating. This book has a very strong like family focus. This book is all about like family dynamics, family relationships, how people treat people in their family, how people use or mistreat, or the things they would do to or for family. And towards the end, like once you get about halfway, maybe a little bit more than halfway through, I would say the book does pick up and it does become much more interesting, which I was very happy about. Families, some families, most families probably have some pretty like toxic things that get carried on down the line. I think that this story kind of touches on like breaking out of that, like breaking the cycle and like doing things differently for your kid. Like it just touched on a lot of things, especially when it comes to parenthood, but it has a lot to say about family overall, whether you're talking about parent to child or brother, sister, cousins, you know, whatever. There's a lot of talk about like family and those relationships and how they can be really bad, but also how they can be really good. I also like the fact that it talked about being a witch in a different way than I've seen before. Usually the stories that I have read or seen, when you are a witch, it's genetic. In this story, being a witch wasn't about your bloodline. It was about your will and your desire and determination to really study the craft and get good at it, which I thought was really cool, because basically anybody could be a witch if they wanted it bad enough and worked hard enough for it. So that's kind of cool. It's definitely not what I was expecting when I went into this story. That's not what I was expecting to get out of this, but I'm also not mad about it. But I think the reason why I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars instead of giving it like 4 stars like I did with Song of Achilles is the fact that I think that the first half of this book really is not necessary. Like I would say you probably could just start at chapter 15 and your takeaway from it will probably be just about the same as someone who read it from start to finish. I would say there maybe are like 5 or 6 things you need to know if you're going to do that. I literally made a list on my phone. 1, Circe is the daughter of Helios, who's like the sun god, I think. Number 2, she was bullied and mistreated by her entire family. 3, she's a witch. 4, she was banished by her family, and so she lives alone by herself. She's a single woman living alone, and as a result of that, there is a scene towards the end of chapter 14 where she experiences SA at the hands of some sailors that came to basically seek refuge on her island. And then number 5, as a result of that experience, she then makes it her mission to turn men into pigs. She uses her witchy abilities to turn men into pigs because of that experience that she had. Number 6, she was friends with Hermes. Well, friends is a strong word. They had a mutually beneficial relationship, if you know what I mean. Hermes was basically like the god version of a boy, so that was the extent of their relationship. And I would say that's pretty much all you need to know. That pretty much sums up the first 14 chapters of the book. I would say that the first 14 chapters give you a lot more background about her and her family and the dynamics of her family, but I don't think that a lot of that really ultimately affects the ending of the book, and it doesn't affect your understanding. So if you are the kind of person that likes to have all the detail and all the background, then read the whole thing. But if you're somebody who doesn't really care about that, and more importantly, if you're somebody that's been on the fence about reading this book, I'll save you some time. Listen to those 6 points again and then start at chapter 15. Thank me later.
Hello, you guys. My name is Paco. If you do not know me, I'm from the channel Bad Witch Books, a Bad Witch reading. It is Bad Witch Books, but I am a Bad Witch reading stories. I love fantasy, adult fantasy. I've been reading a lot more lately, but like young adult fantasy is usually my gig. My genres are, of course, like I said, fantasy, but I also love me some magical realism. I love me witches. Like, give me witches, cultural witches, BIPOC witches. I love BIPOC fantasy. I ramble a lot, if you can tell. I love queer stories. I myself am Mexican, so I really do love Latinx stories, especially like Latinx spooky books. The book picks that I picked were all like witchy and fantasy, and just also like me. I had to choose a book that was written by a Latinx author for at least one of them, because I want that representation in there, and I'm hoping that whoever got my choices enjoyed my books that I chose, and if you don't tell me, because then we'll have a problem. And yeah, not really, but maybe. But yeah, that's just a quick introduction of who I am. I do videos Fridays on my channel. I try to do a video every week. I try to do vlogs where you could kind of see my sloppy vlog style. And I try to do reading sprints, but not often. But yeah, that's me. And I will see y'all later.
And there you have it. Like I said, I already knew who it was, but like you guys didn't know who it was. Or maybe you might have figured it out based on things like what I said about the witch thing. If you guys already follow Paco, then you probably maybe connected the dots and figured out that that's what I was talking about. But there you have it. I read Circe because that was one of Paco's 5-star recommendations. And even though it's called the 5-star exchange, just because we recommended them based on them being 5 stars to us does not necessarily mean that they are going to be 5 stars for everyone. I think what's more important than the star rating is the reason behind why you like or dislike a book, because it's entirely possible that you may love a book for the exact same reason that I hated a book. So I think that that's really important, and that's why I wanted this to be a vlog style video, so you can kind of go along the journey with the person as they're reading it and hear more about their in-depth thoughts of the book versus it just being a recommendation list. This is just for fun. This is just to kind of get some exposure to some books or booktubers and recommendations and things that maybe you otherwise would not have been exposed to. And so yeah, those are my thoughts on the book. That is my rating for the book. Thank you, Paco, for recommending me this book, because if you hadn't recommended it, honestly, it probably would have still been sitting on my shelf unread at this point. So thank you for forcing me to read this book finally. Be sure to check out all of the other Booktubers videos that's part of this collab. Down below in the description, you will find the playlist for those videos. Let me know down below if you would like to see me do this again, potentially with even more Booktubers. And if you have recommendations for who you would want to see me do this with, let me know that down below in the comments as well. As always, my socials and links will be down below in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.